Here with Camden Morrison. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. I'm
Good.
doing great. Yeah. How are
Yeah,
you?
good. Nice to
Good.
talk with a fellow Northeast 10 alumni and another New England golfer. So, yeah, you're from Massachusetts, Millis, Massachusetts, an hour from Boston and has a population of about 8,000. So, can you tell me about growing up in Millis, Massachusetts? And yeah, what was that like for you?
Yeah, I mean, I believe in my high school, I graduated with the biggest class to come out of Millis at the time, which was about 110, I think, maybe 120. So when you walked through the doors of high school and even middle school, you knew most of every single person you were there with. So it was a very safe town. It was a good place to grow up, and I really loved it there. I still, we always had this saying like small school, big family, and it's so true. I still keep in touch with a lot of the people from there, and a lot of my sister's friends, and my friends and stuff like that. So growing up in a small town, I think it was just so great. It was so perfect, and you can make mistakes, and that was okay. And it was a great place to be as a kid.
Yeah, so you grew up in Massachusetts. Can you tell me, did you have a home course or where did you play mostly, growing up?
Yeah, so when I was in high school playing on the boys team, we would practice at Glen Ellen. And they had a wonderful junior membership. I think it was something crazy like $400 for the whole summer. And that was all the golf balls you could hit and as many holes as you could play, walking, of course. But it was a really, really phenomenal experience. It was something that really ignited the love for the game where my mom got a pool membership there. So she would come and use the pool and she'd basically just drop me off and I would just go play golf all day. And it was awesome. And then when I aged out of the junior membership, which I think they stopped it at like 15 or 16, I started working at Maplegate Country Club, which was where I played the rest of my golf through the summers, and then I would only play at Glen Ellen when we would have practices in the fall for high school. So yeah, I would split my time between Glen Ellen and Maplegate. But yeah, I mean Maplegate when I was there, it was not in the best of condition. So I feel like as a young player, that helped me learn more because you had to be a little bit tougher, a little bit more gritty. Versus playing on a course like Glen Ellen, which was always in really, really good shape. And so when I went to college and we would play in tough conditions or, sometimes on tougher golf courses where the the actual golf course wasn't in the best of shape, I felt like I would always excel because, I had that mental toughness of being used to hitting on terrible ranges and putting on bumpy greens. It was a big advantage for me.
Yeah, you brought up my next question, but it was going to be, can you tell me about, working at Maplegate Country Club and, what, what would you do there, your duties and responsibilities
Yeah,
working there?
sure. So at Maplegate, I started helping out the head golf professional with his like big group lessons, like shagging balls and stuff like that. Um, and that allowed me to learn a lot about the golf swing and to be around it and have a better understanding of course management, but also how to teach and how to coach. So that's kind of where I got my foot in the door, and then from there, I think yeah, I think it was 15 or something, or maybe younger, but I started there, and then I started being outside ops, so golf carts, cleaning those and picking the range and stuff like that. And then through the years, I would work sometimes behind the counter. I'd sometimes work behind the snack counter. I'd cut grass for them. I kind of just did over the years whatever I could. I was someone that wanted to learn everything I could about golf because I felt like if you understood how to take care of a golf course, but also the business side of it, it would in some ways help you as a future professional. Understanding the operation, I think, is a very important part. It's not necessary, but I felt like it did give me some advantages down the line.
Can you tell me about your first tournament, which was the 2012 Girls Junior Amateur at Braintree
Yeah.
Golf Course, and what it was like shooting in the 70s for your first time at that tournament?
Yeah, I mean, it was such a funny thing because I haven't thought about that in so long, but and yet it was still such a jumping off point for me in my belief in myself where up until that point I had never broken 70, I was shooting upper 80s or low 90s. But we were playing these really forward tees and I was a range rat at the time, so I had a pretty good understanding of where my golf ball was going. I didn't necessarily have all the course knowledge, like course management knowledge, but I just remember hitting shots and just like being very calm about it all. It was almost a different. I went to a different place in my mind where I I felt very confident in who I was because I had worked so hard to get into that event, to prepare for that event. So there was no sense of there was no lack of preparedness, which I feel as though when you're talking about the jump from an amateur to a high level amateur, and then from a high level amateur to a professional, there's that you'll slowly become a little bit more anxious the bigger the stage gets, and I feel like that anxiety will come from a lack of preparedness in some cases. Uh, and so when I went out there and I just kind of ho hummed it and shot what I shot, you know, I was I was like, whoa, that was cool. But also it was like, oh, that's what you got to do. You work really hard and then you go to a tournament and it feels a lot easier. So then I understood kind of what it takes to then play well at a higher level.
So at age 12, you told your parents you wanted to become a professional golfer. Yes, you've been a professional golfer. What was it like for you, when you turned professional after college and got to play in your first professional tournament?
Yeah, I mean, I think I want to say my first like quote unquote professional tournament where I actually checked the box and paid the extra money to play was I want to say either a women's US Open qualifier or maybe it was the Connecticut Open. Um, I'm not 100% sure on that, but I remember being very nervous. I remember feeling like, oh my God, it's different. And coming from a place of a lot of success in college, it was like, oh my God, all of a sudden, my potential student loan payment is going to be on the line for me to make this to play well. So it took me a long time to understand that the game doesn't change whether you're playing for money or you're playing for nothing. And I felt like that's something that a lot of people coming out of college or turning professional, that's the one piece of advice that everybody gives of like, oh, it's still the same, you can't play differently. But until you're actually there and until you actually experience it, it's a whole other ball of wax. But I do remember I learned a lot and I continued to learn, and that was kind of always a big advantage of mine in college is I would tell myself, I don't necessarily have the money that some of these other professionals do to compete. So, and that was my mentality in college. Same thing. I didn't have this summer tournament schedule that some of these other people had. So I understood that every single tournament rep I had to learn from it, whether I played well or I played poorly. It was always, well, why did I have that double bogey on that hole? What was I thinking? So I started to build this sense of self awareness on the golf course. And so as soon as I got put into that, crucible of playing for your living, um, it was like the same mentality of, okay, how can I improve on this? How can I take another step? And, those steps took me some time to get to where I ended up this year, but it's all a part of it. It's all a part of the process. And everybody says that, but you do have to fall in love with the process and you do have to fall in love with learning everything you can when you're out there.
So tell me about your start in the game of golf. So how did you get started playing golf and what age did you begin playing?
Yeah, sure. So I I grew up watching golf on Sundays.
Mhm. Yeah.
And that was like the first memory I have of paying attention was when I was probably like 10, watching golf. And I remember it, and I'm pretty sure, I'm almost 100% sure that that was when I told my parents I wanted to be a professional golfer before I had ever even touched a club. And then, I started bugging my parents, I want to play golf. I want to play golf. And my dad would play golf with one of my uncles in the summer. And he was a high level, he was a professional. I think he might have played on like the Hooters tour. Like it was a while ago, which the Hooters tour was what is now the Corn Ferry tour. But it was a lot smaller schedule, stuff like that. But to me, he was in my brain, Tiger Woods. He was playing. He was where I wanted to go. And so when he would come visit and they would go play golf, I would hammer my parents and be like, "Please let me go play." And my parents would be like, "Ah, you might get bored. You're such an active kid. We don't think you'd like it." But then finally, one year when we were on Cape Cod, there was a recreation center, and they would offer all these camps for kids in the summer. And one of those was a golf camp at Bayberry Hills, where I showed up with nothing. I had never touched a club. And, the first day I was there, they told me I was a lefty. And then I went home and my dad said, "Nope, you're a righty. We only have right-handed golf clubs. So you're going to be a righty." And I said, "Okay." So I went back. And I went back with my grandfather's clubs, which were way too heavy for me. And I was trying to hit balls, and this one of the pros was behind me watching, and he said, "You have a wonderful golf swing. You have such a good golf swing, and it's so naturalized." And I looked at him. I hadn't even made contact yet. I was just whiffing and whiffing and whiffing, and he said, "No." And I was like, "What are you talking about? Like, I haven't even hit a ball yet." He's like, "No, you don't understand. Like, you're naturally making the swing. I want to give you a free golf lesson." And later, I found out that that was Jim Hallett, who was a very reputable professional golfer. He played on the PGA Tour, and he kind of made his home on Cape Cod in the off season, but also when he wasn't on tour. And at this point, he was much older, so he wasn't really competing anymore. And so that was a big jumping off point for me, where this person who I had the idea in my head that I wanted to be a pro, but now this person who had played on tour was telling me that I could potentially do that. And it was like, okay, then I really got the bug. And that was when they put me in that lesson with him, and I was like, I just wanted to learn everything. And that's soon after, that's when they got me the junior membership at Glen Ellen, and I just started working on everything myself.
So I see you have worked as an assistant golf professional at Tedesco Country Club in
Mhm.
Marblehead. So tell me about working as a assistant golf pro there, and do you still, have any affiliation with that club or not anymore?
I worked there for 2 summers, so 2 seasons. I
Okay.
loved it there. Really, really good facility, really amazing staff. That golf course is always in great shape. And one of the beauties of working there is I got to play a lot. That was one of the things that they wanted their staff to do, especially their professional staff, was play with members. And so being able to play there all the time and practice there all the time, it was awesome. I really loved it there. It was a little far from my house where my mom lived, but it was worth the drive. It was about 45 minutes. Yeah, I loved it there. And then this summer, they allowed me some playing and practice privileges when I was in New England for a couple of events over the summer with the Epson Tour. So I got to be back up there and see some of the members and some of the people I used to work with, which was a lot of fun. But I do not presently work there anymore. No.
Okay. Can you tell me about, playing junior golf growing up in Massachusetts? What tournaments did you enjoy playing in? Did you have any friends, you played junior golf with in
Yeah,
Massachusetts?
I I didn't have the opportunity to play a ton of events.
Okay.
Again, because I didn't have the money for it.
Sure.
I very much, you know, paid most of my way through golf. That's why I was working at Maplegate, so I could pay for tournaments because I wanted to play professionally. So I knew the only avenue to go was to play in college.
Yeah.
And so
Mhm.
The events I did play in, I think I only played in like me at the beginning, maybe one or two a summer, and then as I got older, and when I was in college, I think I only played in like maybe three. Um, but yeah, I remember everybody being really nice, but I also remember everybody being a lot better than me. Even though I had that good first opening event and I played well for a little while, after that, it became it, it's almost like you start to expect things out of yourself, and then you kind of have a regression. And so, when I got recruited to come to Franklin Pierce, I think my average was like 90. I didn't have a whole lot of business getting recruited to go to a Division II school, but Coach Tyler Bishop, he saw a lot of potential in me, and he recruited me off of watching one golf shot at I think it was the Mass Junior Am, maybe. Um,
Okay.
he saw me hit this wedge into the screen, and he was like, "Oh, I want to recruit her." And then when he saw what I shot, he was like, "What? That doesn't make sense." Um, but then once I got here, he was a big factor in helping me grow as a player and get better as a player. And then, from there, the rest is history a little bit.
So I see also in high school you were an accomplished basketball player. So can you tell me about in high school you were an MVP and a team captain for Millis High School. So can you tell me about your basketball career in high school and why you ultimately chose, golf over, basketball for college?
Yeah, I mean, well, I can answer that last part pretty quickly. I hated running.
Okay.
um,
Mhm.
but I I was a very active kid. So, and my parents wanted me to play three sports. If I wasn't doing sports in high school, I should be working. That was
Yeah.
kind of the philosophy. And so I started playing basketball, I think, when I was in like fifth grade. And I was like, oh, I'm actually kind of good at this because I'm just bigger, and, I could jump pretty
Okay.
high. So it was a big advantage. And then when I got to high school, you know, I, I felt like basketball was a big factor in me getting to where I became in golf, because I had to understand hard work
Mm.
and the little things that you have to do to accomplish something. So, my freshman year I was on the varsity team, and we went like 0 and 14, right?
Okay.
And played terrible. But then by the time my senior year, yeah, we won the state championship. But that jump was because of how hard the coaching staff pushed us in practice. Whether we were winning or losing, it did not matter. Like, we were, you know, busting it every single time we came through those doors. And I felt like that kind of unlocked a level of toughness and a level of grit that I always had in me, but I didn't know how to go above and beyond and to like push that limit. So yeah, I mean, basketball to me was very much, you know, I understood my role, which I wasn't a big point scorer, but I was a big rebounder. And so I was a very vocal person on the court. I was a leader on the court. I was a leader off the court, but it was more like I was the person that was pushing everybody else to be better. Um, Mainly because I didn't want to run suicides if my team lost in practice. But it was. I felt like the accolades I received in basketball were kind of a byproduct of the coaching staff pushing us, and then me understanding, okay, if they're going to push us hard, then I have to be the person who's going to push us hard too. I have to kind of back them up and take things on the chin when I make mistakes, but also hold other people accountable. So I felt like that mentally that helped my golf game when Coach Bishop started to be like, because I was a very scared golfer. And so Coach Bishop was a key person in taking that mental toughness in the basketball court and turning it into mental toughness on the golf course.
Nice. So yeah, so after your accomplished basketball career at Millis High School, you then went on
Hmm.
to play college golf at Franklin Pierce in New Hampshire. So yeah, can you tell me
Hmm.
about your college golf career at Franklin Pierce, and why did you ultimately, end up going to Franklin Pierce? What drew you to that university?
Yeah, I mean, the first part that drew me in was he was the only school that really recruited me, and offered me a scholarship. That was kind of a big goal of mine. And so that was the first part that I was like, okay, I'll take this a little bit more seriously. But when I came on campus, I fell in love with the school. I don't know if you've ever been, you might already know this, but there's a lake on campus, which I'm a very big, outdoor person. I love to fish. I love to, kayak, paddleboard, stuff like that. And they have those here. So that was a huge draw for me. And then just the nature aspect of where the school is located, and its closeness to, the mountains, and still being kind of close to home, but far enough where, I still felt like I was on my own. And the other draw too was the fact that, I was going to be the first person on the women's golf program at Franklin Pierce. To me, that felt like I have an opportunity to do something that a lot of other people don't have. And that was like, okay, yeah, this is a good choice. And then of course, meeting Coach Bishop, that was another major factor. Instantly when I met him, we kind of clicked as people, and he is a very kind-hearted person, but he's also tough, and I really appreciated that. And so yeah, all of the above, but mainly the campus I fell in love with, and then the coach too. He was phenomenal. He is phenomenal.
Fishing as a hobby, that sounds interesting. I've only been fishing once. It was like 10 years ago. I
Yeah,
kept
I
getting my
love to fish.
I kept getting my line stuck with other people on the boat, and yeah, I haven't fished
Yeah,
since, but maybe I'll try it again.
yeah, you should. It's very
Yeah,
peaceful.
yeah, we used to have a summer house on Martha's Vineyard. I don't know if you're aware
Yeah,
of
sure.
that.
Yeah,
And
cool.
we had fishing poles just right in our garage, but we'd never go. But maybe I should try again. Try fishing
Definitely.
again. So anyway, getting back to my questions. During college, what was it like to win multiple NE10 Player of the Year awards, and also what was it like to participate in the Division II national championship?
Yeah, so the NE10 awards, I felt as though they were a byproduct of my work ethic.
Okay.
Um, I felt as though it was just a bonus. I was never chasing those down. I was chasing down, the professional aspirations. And so I feel like when you have a really far off goal, you start to work towards that. But I was just so focused on each tournament and learning and getting better and improving myself that, those when that happened, it was like, oh wow, that's such a amazing award. But it wasn't, I don't want to sound cocky, but it wasn't that big of a surprise, because I felt like I was doing my work, and when you do your work, good things happen. And when you focus and you do the small things well, that's when, you start to quote unquote win. But winning is different. It's not always the trophies or the awards. It's more doing what you have to do to just play better, and to just be better. I will say that the national championship participations, those were big goals. I set that goal after my sophomore year, where I missed out on being an individual to go to regionals. And I remember, saying to Coach Bishop, I want to go to a national championship, after I missed out the first time. And he said, Okay. And then, that summer I went home and I hit it hard. I started working out a bunch. I started like hit it hard. And I came back, I dropped like something crazy, like 20 or 30 pounds. And I came in and I was like, all I thought about was qualifying for regionals and then getting to nationals. And so when I showed up my junior year, I just started, playing really well, and beating all these people and racking up individual titles and all these things. And it was like, oh, it was again the emphasis of, if you do your work, good things will happen. And if you focus on the small things, the rest will kind of fall into place. And so when I went to that first regional, I remember flying out with the assistant coach, CJ Konkowski, who I'm very good friends with now. He's one of my best friends. And he said to me, Camden, in these things, you don't have to play outside of yourself. you don't have to go crazy low. You just have to play some solid golf and you'll be going to nationals. And I said, okay. And the whole time we just focused on the small things. Let's hit it here. Let's hit this shot, let's not play outside of who Camden Morrison is. And then, I finished second place at the regional and I punched my ticket to the first national championship. And then when I got there, I was pretty nervous, and it went back to that thought that I had earlier, or what I said earlier of, once you take that next step and you go to a higher level, there's almost that sense of now you have the expectation. So there's a little regression. Um, and then once I, didn't play well there, I said, okay, well, I want to go back again. And how can I do that? And I understood that this was that next year, my senior year, was going to be the first time that the women's NE10 golf program was going to have an automatic bid to regionals. And so in my mind, when I was training, I thought, okay, the best way for me to get back to nationals is if we win the conference. And so again, went back home, hit it hard, and we went to the first round of that conference championship, and I think I shot like 68 or something, and we
Okay.
were ahead by like 5 shots or something. And then the next day, I didn't play as well, but it was enough for us to win by one and then punch our ticket to regionals. And I was like, okay, great. Now I can kind of hone things so that now I can prepare for nationals through the rest of the season. And so that one, I was much more prepared for, and I played better. I think I finished in the top 20 or top 30 or something, and I was very happy with that. So yeah, I mean, the accolades I received, I didn't feel like they were as important, although they are, amazing and amazing accomplishments that I had. To me, I just wanted to be a better player, and I wanted to do well at nationals.
Nice. Yeah, like how you said your accolades and accomplishments are a byproduct of your hard work.
Hmm.
So yeah, after college you became a professional golfer. Can you talk to me about playing in Q school, how difficult Q school is, and yeah, can you
Yeah,
just touch on your journey to becoming a professional golfer?
yeah. So Q school is a whole other ball of wax. I mean, the what it does on your body out there, people don't fully understand. You're in the desert of Florida in August, or sorry, the desert of California in August. So it's even in the morning, it's 105 degrees and 90% humidity, and then the sun comes up and it goes to about 115, but it's dry, but it's still a billion degrees. So the first time I went, I very much prepared my body for that. And, out there, I learned a lot about hydration and electrolytes and what you need to do to prepare yourself for something like that. And I looked at it from purely a, you know, body standpoint of I'm going to practice and do my work, but I have to, save my energy for the rounds. I can't be ripping balls at 3 o'clock in the afternoon in the blazing heat. I can't be putting in the blazing heat. But I also understood that I was guaranteed one round in the afternoon. So I did most of my practice in the mornings, but I did play one practice round on one golf course in the afternoon just to understand what it would feel like. Um, and so that first time I went to Q school, you know, I played okay the first day, and I think I played bad the second day, but then the last day I remember I shot like 69 to make the cut. Um, and that was a big stepping stone for myself as far as, you know, when you're on the line and you have to go shoot a number. I went and shot the number. So that was really important to me. And then, I didn't play as well the final round, but it was okay. And then COVID happened and all that stuff. So the second time I went to Q school, I felt as though I was a little bit more prepared because I understood what it was like. So there was a lot less nerves. But I went into it the same mentality of, I have to save my energy, I have to prepare my body, I have to prepare, my mind for that stuff. And then, I played well. I played solid. And then when I went to stage two, that one was a little different. Again, first time being there. So you're like, oh, what is this going to look like? And, it's a different level of competition. I see stage one is more, you know, people who are high level college golfers or high level amateurs, and they don't necessarily know what they're signing up for. And then stage two is the players. Those are the people coming off the Epson Tour season. Those are, LPGA players that didn't play their way into stage three. That's your competition for the rest of your career, pretty much as a professional in the LPGA or Epson. And so that was a little bit intimidating to me. I was definitely a little bit more nervous. I felt, a little bit out of place, but, again, did my work, focused on what I could control, let go of what I couldn't. And unfortunately, my game didn't show up. So I was piecemealing things together. I had a two-way miss. And, I remember my caddy being there, and I remember us grinding every single day, just trying to improve our position, but things just not kind of going our way. But I'll never forget, like, after every round, I was coming home at like 5 or 6 o'clock and just passing out because I was just so tired from thinking so hard. But yeah, I mean, stage two was a really good experience, and then I finished how I finished, and I had full status for the next year. Unfortunately, I got injured, but it was a really, really good experience. I think Q School it's a place where a player like me kind of finds their rhythm just because of how much pressure there is. I always found that the more pressure there was, the better I played. Just the more comfortable I got, and it's almost like I took the pressure off of myself because I understood how much pressure was on the event, if that makes sense.
So by advancing to stage two, is that how you got Epson Tour status?
Yeah. Yeah. So
Okay.
basically the way it works is like stage
Hmm.
one is essentially the qualifier to basically prove you can play on a tour. And
Okay.
then stage two, you're basically competing for your Epson Tour status or to get to the stage three. And then stage three, that's where you're competing for your LPGA status.
Okay. Well, yeah, I've done multiple of these interviews now with Epson Tour, WAPT Tour professionals. Still learning about Q School, but I think I'm getting a
Yeah.
hang of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Trust me, I'm still learning too.
yeah. So you played on the WAPT Tour, Women's All Pro Tour. Can you talk about
Mhm.
playing on that tour and just give a little plug for that tour? Just
Yeah,
tell a little bit about
sure. I
that
mean,
tour.
yeah, the WAPT is a great place to go if you don't get on the Epson or LPGA. It's a very, very well run tour. I started on that tour. I only played a few events just because, again, they're very expensive. And I was still working a full-time job as a assistant. So, or no, I think it was, that doesn't matter. But the WAPT is a very well run mini tour. When I first started there, you could tell they had aspirations to become, almost like a Latin tour, like a Mackenzie tour kind of situation for the LPGA. So it was very professionally run, and it gave you the opportunity to get those tournament reps in to then better prepare you for your future as a professional. I feel like they did a wonderful job, and I did enjoy their events. I felt like they were always set up very fairly. And the players out there were great. Yeah, I think the WAPT tour was awesome. I didn't play as well as I wanted to, but again, similar to what I said before, you get to a higher level, and then all of a sudden there's expectations and there's a little bit of a regression. So you have to kind of find your rhythm and figure it out as you go.
So on the WAP Tour, aren't all the tournaments mostly in Texas?
A lot of them are. It feels like all of them are. But no, they're around Texas. So they have
Around
a
Texas?
lot of
Okay.
events in Louisiana, Arkansas, Texas. I think they had one or two in Utah, maybe. Not sure. Don't
When
quote
you
me
were
on
on
that
the
one.
when you're playing on that tour, did you stay mostly down in that area, or would you
I
just
would,
travel?
yeah, I would just travel. So
Okay.
I would drive. I was in Jacksonville at the time, so I would
Okay.
drive. I would try and like do it in like a leg. So I would like go to Louisiana first, do a tournament there, and then I think I went like Louisiana to Arkansas, or Louisiana to Texas, then to Arkansas, something like that. But yeah, it was a lot of driving, and it's a little tough just because they put them in the middle of the country. So that was always a part that I wasn't a big fan of. Being from New England and then also being in Florida, it was a lot tougher to get to the events.
So, so my next question, do you have any interesting, any touching on, the traveling topic, do you have any interesting traveling stories? And also, playing professional golf, do you have any, friends or any other professional golfers who, you're friends with or are close with out there?
Yeah. I don't really have any good traveling stories. I would do a lot of it by myself before I got on the Epson tour. So it was usually pretty boring. I was just crushing 10, 15-hour drives, listening to podcasts and music and calling people. Bit of a road warrior, if you will. So I feel like that was pretty tough. And then it wasn't until I got on the Epson tour, one of my best friends who played at Ferris State, who we played against each other in a regional. That's how we kind of met each other, and then we reconnected, I want to say in 2019, 2020 at a Monday qualifier. And then COVID, so we didn't see each other. And then I tore my ACL, but then we were both going to be on tour at the same time. So we started traveling together. And then it was like really fun. It was fun to have somebody to hang out with after rounds, to share car rides with. And, you don't realize how lonely it is until you do it with somebody else. So you don't know what you're missing until you have it. So that was fun. We had a lot of good trips together, and I'm still really close with her now. We talk all the time, and I had some other friends too out there. It's tough because a lot of people have been out there for a while, so they already kind of have their friends and they see each other. So at the beginning, it's a little tough, but then once you're kind of on the road with the same group of people every week, you start to kind of build some more camaraderie there. And yeah, it was a lot of fun being able to travel with the same caravan of people every week. That was cool.
Yeah, and when you're out at tournaments, traveling, staying at houses and hotels and things like that, do you stay by
Mhm.
yourself or do you have a group of friends you stay with?
So I started staying with my buddy Destiny for most of the events.
Okay.
There was a couple where I'd stay by myself, but once I started traveling with someone, it was like, oh, this is way better than going alone. So we would usually try and rent like an Airbnb, which was always way cheaper than a hotel. Um, and yeah, just kind of do it that way. So yeah, I would say we would travel together a lot.
So you're from Massachusetts, so anytime you get to play in the New England area, like last year on the Epson tour, you got to play in, Connecticut,
Mhm.
and my course, you got to play up in Albany, and not saying that, Oregon or Idaho or Utah is not special, but anytime you get to play a tournament in New England, for yourself being from Massachusetts, does that mean a little bit more to you?
Yeah, I mean, I would say being closer to home, you always feel just a little bit more comfortable. You always feel like you might have just a slight edge just because you're familiar with how the grass grows and what the course will be like if it rains. I feel like that's a big advantage for me. But I would say for me, every tournament felt pretty special. I love to travel, and I specifically loved being in different places and experiencing different places and meeting different people. Um, but yeah, I definitely playing in New England, I felt like I was at home, and I felt like the people around me, like I instantly clicked with, just because we're all from similar places and similar backgrounds. So yeah, playing in Connecticut was really big for me, and then playing in New York, I felt very comfortable as well.
Thanks. Yeah. And also being from Massachusetts, next year there's going to be an LPGA tournament at TPC Boston. So yeah, what do you think about there being an LPGA tournament next year in
I think
Massachusetts?
it's I think it's amazing. I feel as though Massachusetts in general is starving for women's golf events and women's professional events.
Yeah.
I know that, and it's not just the women's, but I do feel like
Yeah, there'll
there's a
be
lot
the
of
LPGA tournament, and then also in September, I think it's at Brayburn Country Club. Boston, they're also going to have the U.S. Women's Mid Amateur, I believe.
Oh yeah, I
Yeah,
remember hearing about that. Yeah, no, it's awesome. I think, like I said, New England and Massachusetts in general, they just love sports and they just love. There's no other women's events really near Boston or there, so it's like when it does happen, it's such an amazing thing, and I'm so excited that the LPGA is playing at TPC Boston. It's such a fun venue, and I grew up going to the Deutsche Bank, which was I don't even remember last time or when it went by that, but it's been a while. And then they got rid of the playoff event there, so it'll be really cool to see the women play there and how they play there and how they execute their game plans there versus how the guys did. So I'm really excited for that.
nice. Yeah, and you're from Massachusetts. Are you like a Red Sox, Patriots, Celtics fan? Or
Yeah,
are
I
you?
mean, of course, how can I not
Yeah,
be? I'm always going to be fans of the teams that around where I grew up. But yeah, I love going to Sox games in the summer. There's no other place to be.
yeah. I was at the Giants and Patriots game last weekend, and yeah, that was rough for your team. They missed a field goal at the end, but I think they're in a little bit of rebuilding time. They're whatever they are, 2-9. I think probably some
Yeah,
changes are going to happen either with
tough
quarterback
year.
or with Belichick. I don't know if he's going to leave after this year. We'll see.
Yeah, they've had a tough year for sure.
But I definitely think they probably need a new quarterback. I don't know if Mac Jones is the answer after seeing him throw two
Mhm.
interceptions last weekend when I was at the game.
Yeah, I
Let's see.
agree.
Yeah, my sister lives in Boston, and we went to a Patriots game last week and we froze it. I thought it was a good idea because it was Patriots Bills. It was a good game, but two good teams. But it was a Thursday night game and it was like 30 degrees, and all we did was freeze, and they
Ugh.
lost. They lost by like 20 points or whatever, like
Oof.
30 something to
Tough.
14. But yeah,
Yeah.
anyway. So my final question is, what are some, you know, you're a professional golfer. What are some, goals you have for your professional career, like 5 year plan? Where do you see yourself, golf wise in 5 years from now?
Yeah, I don't totally know right now. Unfortunately, at the end of the season,
Yeah.
I lost my tour card, and because of some choices I had made to try and play my way into stage two, I didn't go to stage one. So once I lost my card, I was done, and I don't have any status for next year. So at the moment, I'm still trying to figure out what my next move will be. I still think and I still want to play. I think I'll try and do maybe a couple Monday qualifiers here and there, try and get a sponsor's exemption for that event in Connecticut and that event in New York. I still, I'm always going to want to compete and I'm always going to want to be at a high level. So I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what my goals are yet. I got to think on those some more. But yeah, I do see myself coming back to it and trying to do it again and maybe of course, everybody wants to win a tournament, but it's so hard to do. So I would say, one of my goals would be to win a professional event, either on the Epson Tour or LPGA Tour. But I understand how much work has to go in to get that. So I don't say that lightly.